Welcome to the Commerce Talks podcast. Lina reached out to me because she just saw the Gartner Magic Quadrant and Critical Capabilities Guide and said, hey, I saw you've been named leader and have a couple of questions because I want to understand Gartner a bit better. And then I told her, okay, so let's discuss in the podcast and bring the one and only person who really knows about this stuff, Boris, my co-founder and co-CEO, with me. And with that, handing over to you, Lina. So what are you wondering about?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Commerce Talks podcast. So as Alex mentioned, today is a very unusual episode where actually Alex is a guest. That's to start with. And Lina has a control, of asking questions. So that's the first. And second, we have the one and only Boris on the podcast. So we promise you a great conversation, not just about Spryker, how they became leaders in Gartner's Magic Quadrant, but also around e-commerce. So guys, welcome to the podcast. And can I maybe ask, first of all, Boris, for you to give a quick intro into who you are and what's your role at Spryker? Because a lot of people know Alex, but this is the first time they might have met you or hear about you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me today. And, it's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Boris. I'm the other CEO. So we have a very redundant setup. So together with Alex, we are sharing this duty and running Spryker now for almost 10 years and responsible for basically everything a CEO is responsible for, but staying very close to the product.
So it's very interesting. And, I heard the Spryker story as a person from Alex. So maybe, Boris, starting with you, tell listeners about how did you guys find Spryker? Tell us more around what Spryker's role in e-commerce space and how in general you are not just having a brilliant product, but also revolutionizing the e-commerce space globally.
Yeah, for sure. So, we both have, I think, a very extensive background in digital commerce and, maybe coming from different angles. I'm coming more from a technology product angle, built to B2C, commerce products. Before that, I had two companies and Alex comes from the, consulting and agency and strategy background. And I think we both have seen very similar patterns like, 10 years ago that, the B2C segment and especially the B2C retail segment and even more importantly, the by now very commoditized categories like, selling fashion online and beauty online and, tickets online, they were actually very well served. There were a bunch of products all the way from SMB to enterprise available. Ironically, for whatever reason, majority coming from Germany. So it seems like we are the digital commerce, capital of the world, which is a bit counterintuitive. But what, we started to observe is that, more and more transactional use cases have been built in industries actually outside of B2C retail, right? So today we call it sophistication, or you can also call it complexity, right? And majority of these industries, might be on the B2B side of kind of the house, right? So, we like manufacturing a lot. We like automotive a lot. We like CPG, industrial goods a lot. But this was just the beginning, 10 years ago, right? So it was very clear that transactional and digital commerce capabilities will extend basically beyond B2C retail. It was very clear that technology is changing, right? So you could see already the very, very first glimpses of people moving away from monolithic applications to something different. We can talk about this in a second. Obviously, cloud native, API, variety of front ends and touch points. This was another observation. We also saw that people were basically asking for what we call business agility today. Right. This was very interesting because back then, digital commerce projects, especially in the enterprise space, were always associated with at least 12 months, if not 24 months of implementation. They were always associated with spending 7-digit amount of money, right? So it was always complex. It was always painful and was almost always run by the CIO or the IT of the organizations who didn't know better than to buy from the legacy partners they had, primarily from the European world, buying from the Oracles, from the SAPs, from the IBMs, right? And this made these projects, not perfect, right? Just because the technology was outdated. It was run by the wrong stakeholders in the organization. And obviously it was also run methodologically the wrong way. So we saw this opportunity that hey, we could potentially build a product that would appeal to business buyers, to sales, to marketing, would help them achieve their business goals. We could build it in a modern way from an architecture and technology perspective. We could equip the teams and the partners with the right methodology so that they can apply this project and actually release, projects quickly, that they can go for MVP approaches, that they can get to value faster, and they can do this without breaking the bank. And we can build it in a way that it does not only solve this very linear commerce case where you have a product category page, a product detail page, you put something into cart and check out. We always call it like buying flip-flops online, but even more sophisticated use cases. And this is basically what we did.
Wow. So it sounds interesting. And, I always, when people, in this part of the world, in the GCC, ask me, why me and Alex, the collaboration on the podcast, on the book, I actually tell a lot of people, Alex is the first person that, I met in the 20 years journey who understands e-commerce so well. Okay. And, now hearing you, how you guys together as a team apply that knowledge, on the product. It's a great, So first of all, let me congratulate to both of you for being recognized, as leaders in the Gartner's Magic Quadrant. Maybe you can, elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand. So our focus and our company history, Boris and I are sharing, seeing that products with a very, very narrow product and feature focus are really limited in this kind of digital world, helped us to achieve this position. And it really makes me proud of what the team achieved, and making it then in the Leaders Quadrant really is an outstanding achievement.
Maybe just to add to what Alex, a few things to what Alex said. I think the right way of looking at it is, and by the way, of course we are very proud, for the recognition, and there's a lot of work that the team has done to get there. The right way of looking at it, at what Gartner and also the other analysts, publish is basically these are risk mitigation tools, right? It's not like a buying decision tool necessarily. It's a risk mitigation tool, right? So it basically tells you, hey, look at this graph, which is a very simplified view of the entire landscape. It's also not really accounting for example, separating SMB from enterprise setters. So there are many nuances, and there might be a super, super great player, but it is serving customers with up to 5 million GMV, right? And you are on 1 billion GMV per year, so it doesn't tell you anything. However, again, it's a risk mitigation tool, and this is why, especially the critical capabilities report, where you can go into the actual use cases and can check for, hey, I'm actually a B2B use case, or I want to run B2B and B2C, or B2B and marketplace on one platform. Or they introduced last year for the first time something they call complex business cases, which is actually accounting for complexity, right? Do I have a simple use case? Do I have a complex one? This is what is really helpful for business decision makers or IT decision makers to look at, right? And I think this is the great, and this is what we are really proud of, that for 3 out of these 4 use cases, we are ranked on 1, and for 1 we are ranked on 2.
Boris, actually, just for the listeners who maybe haven't read the report yet, and you mentioned that it's very important to read the critical capabilities guide. Tell us, what are those capabilities that maybe contributed to this such a recognition, from Spryker's sort of side, as you are very involved in building the product itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, as I said, right, from the beginning, it was very clear to us that commerce is not binary. It's not like, hey, there is commerce or there is none. It's actually, you can split it into actual use cases, right? So you can have within the B2C vertical, right? You could have variety of use cases, right? You could be selling directly to your customers. You could be having, subscription related use cases, normal commerce related use cases. You could have marketplace related use cases. You could have, there's and then the same repeats for B2B, the same repeats then there's unified commerce. You could have offline, online capabilities. So if you then break it down and say, hey, what are the, let's say, top 20, top 30 use cases, and not look at it from a pure B2C, B2B way, it was very clear to us and we started to observe that people have more than one use case, typically, right? You have the traditional retailers who try to kind of, build direct to consumer capabilities. You have manufacturers who try to go directly to consumers. You have people trying, bypass the traditional wholesale and distributors. You have more mature players who evolve from a retailer to a marketplace to a platform. So this entire dynamics that you, I think, are very well aware of leads to, hey, I do not provide someone a platform which is just purely a B2C, a B2B platform, but I provide someone the ability or the access to capabilities which help you to run as many very different use cases on one stack, which is also one of the biggest differentiators, especially in the current macro environment where people have less budgets to spend, right? At the moment where people have more demand than ever to launch fast, right? That you do not end up with 5 different technology stacks just because you have a B2B piece and you want to do some marketplace, and you have an offline online business that you need to connect, right? Because this drives up your IT costs, this drives up your agency costs, this drives up your TCO over time. So you want to have a lean, efficient setup and be able to operate use case on one stack. Like you're buying a big box of Lego and there is already pre-composed the Starship, the Star Wars ship, right? And there is like, the car that you can build out of it, but you do not need to go out every single time and kind of rebuy it and rebuild it. It's already there, right? It's part of your value proposition, and you can just leverage the pre-composed use cases that are already part of the stack.
The bar is like actually digging deeper, so very clear, in terms of that you guys that try, it's not necessarily targeting just B2C or just B2B. You're really like approaching it from the business sense, and maybe one day, today we need to be pushing our B2C offerings because we need to compete with competition. Maybe another day we decided, to partner in another country with like big distributor, and B2B became the critical element of it. So what you're saying, the solution is really capable of tackling a number of use cases from the marketplaces to B2C to B2B across different verticals, from manufacturing to grocery, I assume. Let's say, like people that are 1,000 tasks in their day, as a CIO or CTO, you don't really have time sometimes to evaluate every monolithic platform, every composable platform. Can you tell us more about what role, like what is Spryker? Are you fully composable? Are you non-composable? And how do you, is that composability element important if you're trying to really build a modern day architecture as an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we are definitely fully composable. And this was, by the way, also the initial premise also of the product when it was designed, even before the term composable existed, right? So from day one, basically the product was designed in, fully decoupled way. So, the front and back end was separated, the capabilities were separated, the modules were separated. So this was kind of the core architecture that and one of the reasons why we thought back then it's important was actually, again, to increase efficiency and productivity, right? Because from a business point of view, people came to us saying, hey, we like what you have, but we have our own PIM, or we have our own experience, platform, or we have our own, maybe card capability, right? So can we have everything you have, but this or this not, right? So it was important so that, people can put together the best of breed kind of technologies. So this was one kind of the more technology aspect, but also from an efficiency point of view, we also learned, and I think everyone can relate to this here, that, the more code you have, the higher your TCO basically, right? So it is, it's very clear that, with every single line of code that is being added, right? You need to maintain it. There are bugs, you need to deploy it. You need to, do QA, you need to do regression testing. So there is actually kind of an inherent incentive, to keep your code base as lean and clean as needed. And there's nothing bad about features to have. The only problem is when you don't need them, but you still have to have them, and you invest time into updates, into upgrades, into, bug fixes for stuff that you don't even use. So the main idea was, hey, how can we keep the code base clean, right? How can we make sure that whatever we ship to you is just what you need, right? Knowing that this will lead to a TCO reduction. So, fully composable, yes, right? In terms of decision-making process, this is definitely, by now it kind of became the standard, right? So I think nowadays modern kind of decision makers, right? IT decision makers, but also business decision makers, they ask for that. So this is not even kind of I would call it not even like a main differentiator. It's like table stakes, right? Today, if you're not a cloud-based platform, then you don't have real, reason kind of to exist in the market. So this is why everyone, one way or another, has moved to cloud. And this is a little bit like with composability as well. So nobody likes to buy an old horse, right, anymore. Do people leverage composability, right? Not to the degree that I think we all thought, right? And this is also why Gartner looks at it and, keeps on kind of pushing this maturity of the market kind of out a couple of years, right? Because what they see as well is that composability also comes with downsides. It's not, some players try to create the impression that, composability you just need for composability's sake. And this is not true, right? So if you're not able to run your organization, if you cannot leverage composability, this can also bring you basically downsides. It can make your projects more expensive. It can lead to, more integration efforts that you would have. It can lead to a more diversified landscape of partners, right? And you don't have the business capabilities to manage, commerce and payment, order management yourself. So you need to be very well aware of why you're buying this. Do you buy this because you already have the composability problem? Great, right? Then it makes sense. Or do you buy it because in the future you want to benefit from this architecture because you want to separate your teams, between you and the agency, the SI that you use? Is it because you believe in, kind of agility and that this will give you speed? So you need to make it a conscious decision, right? And I think there are many cases out in the market where people have not made this decision in a conscious way and then have been disappointed and have not gotten, the upside of what they thought they will get. Some even got the downside. So we like being fully composable, but we also like explaining to people, how to apply this in the right way. And we also like to ship a product that is also, we call it pre-composed. So it gives you ready to use capabilities so that especially for your first 1-2 use cases, you can be super fast. You can launch in weeks. You can get to value right away. You can go back to your leadership and prove success. You can start making money, right? And then you leverage the composability for your second, third, fourth step as you grow and as you evolve and as you expand.
And I actually have a follow-up question on this. So you mentioned that people are scared, sometimes, and maybe because, they've got disappointed in the past, maybe because it was the wrong partner, wrong solution, wrong. But what I come across, I've been in e-commerce sort of 20 years. The key challenge I see, when it comes to composability conversation, everyone is clear on e-commerce element of composability, but no one is clear of what will be the PIM, the OMS, the content management system, the CRM, and so on and so forth. So you guys as Spryker, so you said, who do you think should take that role in terms of advising the clients? Because physically, I sit most of the time on the client side and make that decision. I physically don't have time to evaluate e-commerce systems. And then on top of that, every single PIM, every single OMS, my RFP evaluation then becomes 6 months project. Do you know what I mean? So maybe you can tell us some, I don't know, whether case studies or I guess you are seeing these similar examples. What role do you as a CEO, first of all, play in this? And how do you simplify this whole challenging, let's say, puzzle for the customer?
Yeah. So 2 answers here, right? One is, obviously this is something that, great market experts like, you and other partners of ours, like solution partners, consultancy typically do, right? So especially the ones who are trained and experienced, they can help, people kind of guide through exactly these questions, right? So this is what they have all these experts for. Second point is, there is no one size fits all. I think this is kind of the main issue. What we try to do as Spryker is we try to apply as much of the data that we have about, what industry is this customer in, right? What market segment, what market size is customer in? What is the digital maturity a customer has, right? What is the ambition level a customer has? What is the ability to execute, right? And many other kind of questions that we track within our customer base, that we collect, right? That we measure. And this helps you to form an advice, right? Because otherwise it's very, very hard, right? So if you have someone who, has a certain maturity level, has the ability to execute, has the teams, has the funding, and has a problem to solve, which you can solve with composability, right? And then you can go and say, okay, you know what? The built-in order management capability we have in our Spryker platform, or the built-in PIM capability we have, is not enough, right? And is justifying a second tool, right? With the integration, because the use case you have is going so deep, and extending, customizing what we ship you out of the box is, does make sense commercially from a timeline perspective, whatever. Then we try to apply it. So what I'm saying is basically pattern recognition, right? That our customer success team does, right? That our consulting and value engineering team that we have for it, they would look at it. They would go back to you as a customer and say, hey, Mr. Customer, right? Other customers from the retail, food and grocery retail space, with your digital maturity, with your resources, with your ambition, blah, 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 right? Have seen success in doing it this way, right? And the answer might also be not binary, like you should buy another tool or you should not. The answer can be, hey, your management demands you to launch this first use case in the first 4 months. Okay. The complexity of this use case is not big. You need to prove success. Everything you have as requirement for order management in phase 1 and phase 2 will be fully covered by Spryker. There's no need, why you should spend time on RFP, why you should go out. You might come to a point in 12 months from now, 24 months from now, where, you have such dedicated requirements. And by the way, you have also people who will manage the system, and it will not be like, the same 2 guys that you have today. So you have dedicated team, they have dedicated requirements, and then it's justified. Again, this is why composability is so great. Then you can, plug out the OMS that we have and plug in and we do partner with many of these people, right? We do have great partnerships with people around the PIM space and experience and order management. So fantastic, right? So it can also be a matter of time and timing when to do what, right? And it's not always binary, use it or not use it, but it's very, very important to not fall into the trap of giving generic advice. Right? Because, we have seen people coming to us with use cases that just by definition, if you probe them on, hey, what is it you have promised to your leadership to release? What is the business objective? And then you would ask the same question, hey, why exactly why do you want to overcomplicate things in the first 24 months, right? You will not get funding internally if you don't show traction, right? You need to get the orders, you need to get your merchants on board. This is not a problem to solve, right? For you now. It might be in the future, but it's not a problem to solve now. So, again, I think it's a combination of us trying to apply pattern recognition as good as we can, and then our partner ecosystem coming on top, right? Either with consulting and advice or the technology partners that bring these capabilities to the table.
And, I'm glad, you touched on that, because for me personally, from the other side, that maybe deals with quite a few platforms, I tried to explain to the customers exactly that. I said, listen, anyone can copy the tech. Anyone. Like after I've seen every single, commerce platform for the past 18 years, I can hire a team in overseas and just copy it and make the same product. But one thing that I say, like, I cannot do, you have to work with the partners or technology companies or vendors that actually can tell you this pattern recognition, because what works in manufacturing will not work in automotive and will 100% not work in a picking from store in a grocery store. Okay. So, and I think that's what maybe I'm glad, like you're getting recognized for this, because for me, it's a lot more important, that knowledge that you have in the team than actually the thousands of features that you developed in 1 minute. But talking about,
one more important thing, just because I want to avoid that we talk about it from purely a technical angle, right? So it is and should be primarily kind of a business value, business outcome related conversation, right? I give you a simple example. We have many people who come to us and say, hey, I want to build a marketplace, right? My CEO, my board, they fell in love with this idea. We have competitors doing this, so I need to build a marketplace. And by the way, I even got funding internally. Great. Let's do it, right? And then, you would ask them and probe them, okay, what is the business outcome that you expect? Yeah, I need to, I have now 6 months. I need to launch a POC. I have a pilot, and then I need to show, I promise them I will have 50 million revenue. And when you try to connect these dots, you might come to the conclusion or to the advice that the business case or use case selected is not the right one, right? Because no way, will there be like a marketplace with revenues, right? If this is the metric you need to report, there might be other use cases that will get you there faster. But you will have to solve so many challenges. You will have to find merchants. You will have to onboard these merchants. They will have to get their products on the platform. You need to solve for payment. So there are so many challenges that either the metric is the wrong one to report on. Then you just need to go back and say, hey, after 6 months, I can go back and say how many merchants I have on the platform, how many SKUs I have on the platform, how well I'm doing this and that. Or the use case is selected the wrong way, right? If you need to show revenue after 6 months, let's go back together and look into the Lego brick box and find the use case that helps you to get to the business objective. And again, the composability and architecture, it's all great, but it's just a tool, right? It's not solving your business problem. So you need to be very crystal clear about the business objective you actually solve.
So couldn't agree more. Hey, look, Boris, you and me can talk composability and tech, I think for another 5 hours. But talking about the business and spinning conversations are, so me and Alex record a lot of podcasts from this part of the world, other parts of the world, the book and all, so on and so forth. And actually, in most of the conversations, a lot of the leaders, e-commerce leaders, which are not necessarily IT leaders, but e-commerce leaders that, comes from the business, they share a lot of sort of challenges. And sometimes those challenges, as you mentioned, are quite simple. But as the e-com head or e-commerce director, they keep saying, oh, IT said no, someone said no. So Alex, maybe over to you in terms of, tell us more like, how do you think, as a CEO of Spryker, you hear a lot of these business people complaining about number of things, and some of those challenges are really, really big problems. How do you inject that knowledge into the Spryker, into building the product, and how do you ensure that actually Spryker stays ahead of the game and kind of presents the solutions before the leaders even ask present you the problem?
Yeah, I think we had this as a podcast a couple of times. So it's like in a good marriage, you have to talk a lot. Before the project, while the project is running, and obviously after the project is obviously also something, Gartner is evaluating. So they are looking at the Gartner peer insights, where our customers are invited to give ratings on projects and the platform, on the platform itself. It really depends who is talking. So obviously with some of the bigger corporates, we have in our clientele, the IT still is reporting into a CFO office. So, that kind of shrinks the opportunity from a business perspective. And in other, corporates, the IT is kind of a business center already. When the IT is a business center, they are usually much better equipped in telling us where the platform should go. And they know exactly what kind of risks they are willing to take. Risk in form of their own product management, their own feature development. And this is something, a company and also our customers needs to learn. That is nothing that you can do out of a sudden, but you need to have done some projects. You need to know how IT management is done to be able to give us the correct request. Otherwise, it's just like, okay, we need this, we need that, we need another feature. But that's not how we started. But I think that's something we have learned together with our customers, and it's a very different conversations we have with our customers and CIOs now, 10 years after the Spryker Foundation, compared to the conversations Boris and I have been involved in the beginning, like 10 years ago. There it was really tough sometimes to get extra budget, to get out of this feature function comparison. And we are moving our product people very close to the project, so they understand what is working well, what's not working well, where we need to improve the product, where we need to change maybe the product trajectory, because we are sitting in the same boat essentially, and we also need to move very quickly with the product.
So talking about the teams, again, you said they work with clients quite closely. So tell us maybe more like, so what's next for Spryker? What are you seeing in terms of in the next couple of years? Some platforms, let's not name the names, go from B2C now to enter B2B. Other platforms in the same, let's say, report, kind of didn't do marketplace and are trying to add marketplace. Others are trying to go from monolithic to start selling composability. So what what's the next 5 years looking for Spryker? What are you working on, developing? And
maybe I quickly start before handing over to Boris. So what we're definitely seeing is that like e-commerce is changing, how companies are earning money in e-commerce. You're working still with a lot of companies that are like selling products, but obviously more and more companies are earning money by selling access, like additional insurances, for example, or they are adding retail media into their portfolio, or they're adding like financial services sold via platform. The whole P&L of like e-commerce businesses is changing, and that's what we are seeing and try to develop like also on a platform level, so that our customers can become a bit less inventory dependent, I would call it, because the new big leading platforms globally, still B2C platforms, are reducing the inventory risk. And this is something we are seeing on a global level. And if you're reducing your inventory risk, that means that you earn less and less money by selling products because the product margin is shrinking. And there we try to find ways and business models around it. And marketplace is obviously just the start of it. And there's like many, many more features and functions and business models our platform needs to be able to serve, where our customers can do more without just selling products. Like from a global product perspective, I think that's the way where we're going. If Boris is not telling something else now.
No, Boris not telling something else. I think, maybe just adding here, right? So I think on the one hand, as Alex said, the question is how can we equip, our customers better, and what role can we play, right, in that, right, in providing these capabilities, either directly or through, partners that we, give access to the platform. I think this is one direction. And the other one is still, especially because of the current macro environment, is thinking about what further use cases and I keep on repeating myself, right? So you want to run as many use cases. You actually want to run ideally all your transactional use cases on one platform, right? Regardless of whether this is a B2B use case or marketplace or B2C or unified commerce or IoT commerce, it doesn't matter, right? And thinking further ahead and, what else customers want to do, how do they think about digital sales rooms? How do they think about CPQ? How do they think about subscriptions, right? So stuff like that to be provided in a, again, pre-packaged, pre-composed way, making it easy and faster than ever to just use this use case without or with just very, very limited customization, right, is the second angle, right? So more use cases out of the box, right? More use case coverage. And then the other one is how can we equip, through the smart application of, services, people for this world that Alex mentioned, right? What, be it retail media, be it payment, be it, whatever else. I mean, we haven't touched on that, and probably this would kind of break the time here, right? But like AI is an interesting topic, right? So how does this change things, right? I mean, there are great companies already building, for example, AI agents to replace the e-commerce manager, right? So the traditional kind of headcount that you have to run and operate a system, regardless of Spryker or not, right? You have an e-commerce manager, you have people to do inventory management, category management, product, content managers. So there is, if you have like a well-working digital business, you might end up with an army of back-end people doing this, right? And there are now companies building smart AI agents that automate this, right? And help you to run so either run your team like in a more efficient way or do it with lower cost, right? This is another question, right? How can you, not just from a technology point of view, but like overall experience, make sure that you bring down the TCO or you help businesses scale better? So I think this is kind of, where we are thinking, in terms of like product and surrounding ecosystem.
So whenever you launch one of those features, let's do another podcast, because I believe this is where, not just where e-commerce is heading. I think these are the features you mentioned and what's going to bring some sort of profitability conversation in the e-commerce world, right? And I do, in my sort of line of business, I'm kind of doing with quite a few brands, retailers, distributors, sort of retail media but it's just, I'm just starting it. As you said, I'm like at the first grade now. And I think a lot more needs to come from companies like Spryker, where we are first starting with that education element. And I think if you make it easy on, so I have sort of when it started, I have Microsoft. So start learning Excel because you're already buying, like sort of office, tools. So if you bring that into the platform, I feel like more of the brands, more of the heads of e-commerce or like, let's say business leaders will start experimenting because now they are like quite scared. They're like, it's like, if you remember 5 or 10 years ago, was like marketplace. No way. How, wow, where, how will I connect? I can't, I don't, I have no people. And now, it's business as usual. So I feel like I'm glad you are talking about it. And I'm super excited to learn more around it when you guys introduce these features into the platform. So we can continue this conversation for the rest of the evening in my place. I don't know, it's sort of lunchtime where you are, but unfortunately due to time, let's kind of like last thing I wanted to ask you, because not often, I have like a tech sort of tech founders, tech CEOs of a super fast growing company on the podcast, and both of you are together. So maybe what can you share with the audience that is building, like maybe some people are listening here and they are building a SaaS solution. Maybe they are raising funds. Maybe they want to get to this Gartner Magic Quadrant one day. What sort of advice, lessons you learned as working it together, as maybe hiring people, building the product, bringing the businesses? I don't know, Alex, maybe start with you. Like any advice, what lessons you learned in this 10-year journey?
For Boris and me, it's easy. So we are sharing this agency history. So Boris was running an agency which was a bit more focused like on the Magento Hyper side. So the agency I was running was focused on shopware and a bit more Salesforce. And when you're like working on the agency side, you're always wondering, wouldn't it be so much better on the vendor side? So much easier just to sell the software and then the agency is doing stuff. So for agency people like Boris and me, that's like that's the highest mountain we can climb, becoming a vendor. It's kind of in our DNA. We are doing it like for 10, 20 years. And I think that is like also answering your question without Spryker. And I'm always telling this like Boris, and we're discussing this, like, what do we do if we sell Spryker? Or what do we do if we don't have Spryker? Then we would need to invent another Spryker, because that's the only thing we can do. It's our industry. It's our network. That's where our friends are working now for 10, 15 years, sometimes on the vendor side, sometimes on the agency side, sometimes on the practitioner side. Essentially, we have to admit we don't have any other qualifications. So we had to end up on the pinnacle on the Gartner side. That's how I would frame it.
Yeah, I would maybe just add to it that, I think it's very important that you have, when you work on the company or you work in the product, that you have conviction, right, in what you do. And it's, we see many founders and many people not having conviction, right, and like almost like pivoting like every couple of weeks just because they're jumping from one trend to the next trend, and this analyst said this, now Bitcoin is hot, now we should be doing this, now we should be looking into AI is hot now, right, now it's virtual reality, let's do so I think it's very important you have conviction, right, and conviction can come from you either knowing a space very well, or you're having a lot of passion for a space that you don't know well, right? But you want to build up, expertise. And then you should spend the time and be relaxed. I'm not saying stubborn. And sometimes the market tells you clearly that you don't have product market fit, or, you just, don't have the sales going. And of course, then you need to reconsider. But if I would kind of remember the last 10 years, how often, when we started, as I said, modularity was not a thing. People said, okay, why is the product so modular? Nobody will want it. Everyone wants it to be like one big product. Then we started doing B2B. Everyone was like, no, commerce is B2C. B2B is too small of a market. So then and every time, we did something, right? People were, challenging this. And if we would have reacted and responded to all of that, then we would not be where we are today. And solving for consistency is very, very important, right? And not be hanging around too much on conferences, right? Like every week being at 3 conferences is great, right? But you spend the time on product, spend the time on your customers, right? And then the market will tell you whether your conviction was right. And if it was, great, then you grow. If it wasn't, then you change the idea, you adjust, and then you keep moving.
Brilliant advice from both of you. I am sold. I don't know about listeners, but I'm sold. So Alex, if someone on the call is still not sold, hey, they get to, if they choose you, they get to hang out with both of you and learn from all this extensive experience that you both bring to the table. But if they're not sold or they're starting to wonder if they should start with Spryker, learn more about Spryker, what should they do? Like, where should they go? Give us a bit of the sales pitch here.
Spryker.com.
Yeah. Can they download the report? Is the report available?
Yeah, we will. We can put the download links for the reports in the show notes, so people can definitely download it, especially the critical capabilities guide, where it's more about like how the software is working, what cases might be a bit more interesting. But we will put the reports in the show notes.
All right. So a brilliant conversation as always. Boris, to be continued on all these features that you're introducing. Thank you so much for your time, and great to see you both.